It's ridiculous that somebody can be thinking of how to increase the presidential term limits when we are already in the woods, when you're already having these messes being done. But they are testing the waters. So we must have a strategy in which we must deal with the proposed amendments. Remember, these are not the amendments. These are not amendments that can be initiated by Parliament alone without involving the people. And that is why we, the people, must come out and defend this constitution. I would say that Kenya is experiencing a very unique moment. The choices that the people of Kenya did make on the 9th of August, had it not been for this choice, the country would not be where it is today. Because the country has mutilated all the gains that came with the 2010 constitution. What we contemplated to have when we all went and voted for the new constitution, we expected and anticipated to have a country that is governed by the rule of law. We expected to have a country where transparency would be the order of the day in the manner in which the government conducts its affairs. We expected that accountability would be the standard and the cardinal north. We expected that we shall elect men and women of integrity who foot the bill under Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We also expected that we will have servant leadership. A servant leadership is one where the people takes the lead and the elected persons follows thereafter. But what we are having in this regime, which I'm saying is a curse that has been bestowed upon us, is a regime that has decided to mutilate all the gains. All the gains that we had are down to the drain, and people must come up to defend the gains that we had. I am not surprised that Zakayo Arap Tamar has never involved himself in thinking on how a country can be governed by the rule of law. That's why you can see immediately he came into power, the first that he ever said was Public-Private Partnership Act. We must remember that now the offending provisions were brought by Zakayo Arap Tamar through the amendments in 2023. In 2014, 2015, the act was still in existence. There were projects that were still ongoing under the same Public-Private and Partnership Act. But there was no this hue and cry because the processes were open to the members of the public. The processes were initiated through the requisite public participation. The act was used to initiate new projects, not the projects that are already going on. One example I would give where the Public-Private Partnership Act was initiated and used was the Amu coal power plant, the one that is just about to be initiated in Lamu. That was a Public-Private Partnership Act. The other one, of course, is the expressway. Is a Public-Private Partnership Act project. The other one that never took place was to be the Mui Coal Basin. Why were there no hue and cry? Because the processes were open, they were transparent, they conformed to the dictates of the act, and before the act was assaulted by Zakayo, the act conformed to the desires, the wishes, and the aspiration of the people. It is the amendment of the act that has now opened up ongoing projects like the JKIA up for grab. So the amendments were mischievous in the first instance. They were meant to make sure that even the going concerns projects like the JKIA can be available for grab by private partners. I want to repeat and say that initially the act was only dealing with new projects. A private partner would be invited And you could even initiate privately. If you go and identify a project and you realize that an investment can be done here, for example, coal power plant, or for example, the wind power generations, you could initiate and you pump your own money into it. And you build it, operate, and transfer to the government upon the. Let me finish up on the Public Partnership Act and tell our listeners that it was amended in 2023 to make it available, the already existing projects available for grab. That's why you can see JKIA has been initiated through the private initiation, which cannot apply on a project where Kenyans have invested their monies in. Private initiated proposal only happens and takes place when the investor has identified a new project where he can put his money in. And those are some of the issues we are raising in court with Tony Gasho. And to mention that, I don't know what people are calling, I'm sorry. Mention that Jubilee has also been joined in the suit. Kioni will be submitting on the same. DAPK has been joined and Wiper, because you want to give it that particular impetus. So we are having impunity leading this country. People are amending the laws to suit their circumstances. People are amending the laws to suit their desires and their needs to grab the resources of this country. That's why you can see somebody like Cheragay can propose to amend the constitution. But the good thing is, presidential term limit cannot be amended by parliament without the involvement of the people. Those are some of the protected provisions under Article 255 of the Constitution, which the Constitution says that you cannot amend to increase or decrease the presidential term limit or the term of parliament without consulting the people. So whatever is initiating is an act in futility, because we shall reject it in a referendum. Or unto you, if those people who are in Azimio, who have now joined as a government, decide to support the process. But we shall still put and stay guard to the processes so that we may defend this constitution. I must tell our listeners this evening that this constitution must be protected by we the people. The state has abandoned us. The state organs have abandoned the process. In any case, the state organs, both non-state actors and some state actors, are being used to perpetuate this mischief of amending the laws to suit their circumstances. So we must stay vigilant. And I want to borrow the words of Tony Gashoka, that all hands must be on deck. One of the issues that we redeem this country is that we must make sure that we file as many suits as we can before the High Court through the public interest litigations, the PIL. They are open for grab. It's only the opportunity that we have to defend our democracy, to defend our rule of law, and to defend our institutions. Coming to the Privatization Act, which was declared unconstitutional yesterday by the High Court, we must understand that the Privatization Act is different from the Public-Private Partnership Act. The Public-Private Partnership Act is still intact as amended by Zakayo Arap Tamar last year. And therefore, if we do not rise up and defend the Constitution, that act will still be available for application in perpetuating mischief by Zakayo. And that is why when we were in court on Monday, we sought leave of the court to amend our petition so that we can challenge the constitutionality of that act, especially in circumstances where the act is being used by the regime to grab the already existing projects where Kenyans have invested their resources in. Fortunately, we were granted leave to make those amendments, and Tony will be speaking on the political impact of it and the social impact of our case at the most opportune time. so that we are able to bring this to life. People have generated a lot of interest around that particular petition. And the good thing is that we are having very, very strong representations. Tony Gashwako will speak to it again, of the individuals who want to support the petition. So let us not start jubilating that the JKIA will be saved by the declarations of unconstitutionality of that act that took effect yesterday. It is not within, the project has not been initiated through the defunct or the defunct or the impugned act. It has been initiated through the amendments that Zakayo brought. And that is why we must continue to stay put and push to make sure that the project itself is declared a nullity, ab initio, by the court. So we are still not out of the woods. We must stay vigilant and continue to push on this particular agenda. On the issues of Sergei, as I pen off, it's ridiculous that somebody can be thinking of how to increase the presidential term limits when we are already in the woods, when you're already having these messes being done. But they are testing the waters. So we must have a strategy in which we must deal with the proposed amendments. Remember, these are not the amendments. These are not amendments that can be initiated by Parliament alone without involving the people. And that is why we, the people, must come out and defend this constitution. I keep on saying, even if you do not have any reason to defend this constitution, you must come and defend it for the future generation. So that if you feel you do not need it, let us not mutilate it for the next generation. And that's the duty that we must bestow unto ourselves. Is a commitment and an obligation, is a creed that we must take oath to defend and to stand with. Thank you, Tony. I'll still remain available for consultation.